we finally have an official announcement that The Sims 5 is in development. This is a huge deal because before this week, they had never even acknowledged The Sims 5. We all kind of knew they were working on it based on like job listings we were seeing and like earnings call statements they were making, but there was never any official acknowledgement of it until the other day when they announced Project Rene. And so today I want to walk you through everything we know about The Sims 5 and also talk about my thoughts on it. I've been seeing a lot of speculation and like worries about this, so hopefully I can ease a few of your concerns and also unfortunately maybe share some new things that I'm worried about. They had this really big live stream they called the Sims Summit a couple days ago, and in it they talked about a ton of stuff. They teased like 2 future expansion packs for The Sims 4, they talked about a baby update, and then towards the end of the stream they sort of like shifted gears and started talking about the future of The Sims. So Lindsay Pearson comes on and she says that she's going to share a first look at the future of The Sims innovation and how she had the privilege to usher the Sims franchise to the next decade and beyond. But then more importantly goes on to say that we are building the next generation Sims game and creative platform and calls it the future of The Sims. There's a lot of fluff in here about like creative storytelling and customizing and stuff like that, but the main takeaway from this is that confirmation of the next generation Sims game. They go on to call it Project Rene, and I think that's what's kind of confusing a lot of people. I think they're taking this as like an official name and being like, oh, it's not The Sims 5, it's like some random game. But to hopefully ease your concerns, she specifically called it the next generation Sims game. And so often when big games and big projects like this are happening, they'll have a code name for it when it's in super early development. Keep in mind, this game is not anywhere near being released. This is super early development. So they don't have like a real name for the project yet. They just have this code name, Project Rene. Even like the new PlayStation consoles have code names. Like it's a super common thing that happens in the industry when things are really early in development. Don't worry, they aren't actually going to name The Sims 5 after Bella Swan's baby. Although just so you know, from here on out, I will be calling this Project Renesmee instead. Oh my god, imagine it's a Twilight collab and not actually The Sims 5 at all. It's like Batu, except it's Twilight. I'm sorry. Okay, so when is this game going to come out? We don't actually have a release date for this. There isn't even like a release estimate for this. They even said in the stream this is super early for them and how they've never shared information about their games years before they launch. So this is gonna be a long ways out. They're telling us like really early. It isn't even really an announcement. It's more of like a teaser and just a very simple acknowledgement that it exists and that they're working on it. These kind of games take forever to finish, so it really is going to be years away. What really surprised me is they actually showed footage of what build mode might look like in this next gen Sims game. I think I found that especially shocking because I really did not expect to get any Sims 5 announcements, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this because obviously I saw like all the speculation on Twitter about it, and I was just convinced that it would be a really stupid idea to announce it this early. And so I figured like at most, if they did announce it, it would be like a really simple like, we're working on The Sims 5, and then like no other information or acknowledgement about it. So again, I was shocked when they started showing footage. I'm gonna play you a little bit of the live stream here so that we can like talk about all they showed, but you can see in this first clip, they're like customizing a bed. This is really cool because in this example, they're changing like the size of the base and the footboard and stuff all separately. Obviously, we don't have anything like that in The Sims 4 right now. It actually reminds me a lot of House Flipper because in that game, you can like change the bed frame and the cushions all separately. It's kind of a feature that's happening in a lot of build sim type stuff right now, so I'm really glad to see it as a plan for The Sims 5. Then they come on and show a color wheel, which obviously we had in The Sims 3. They also show like a create a style tool where you pick patterns and stuff. This is exactly like The Sims 3, so I'm very excited to see it back. Here, they're even changing the cushions separately to be like one big wide cushion or 3 cushions. They're adding in pillows and like completely adjusting them on like a full axis. In this clip, we get like a first look at the buy mode, so we can see a lot of the options and what you can choose when you actually pick an item and like how you can rotate it and stuff. There is a lot to look at in this room, like with the walls and doors and things too. And honestly, just with the options that they have and the categories here, I'll talk more on that in a second. And then they go on to show this clip of them like multi-selecting, which we can't even do in The Sims 4, and then uploading not a room, but like a furniture set. To give an example, it kind of seems like how you can upload a room to the gallery, but instead of needing to have the walls and everything, you can just like upload a furniture set. And it kind of also implies there's going to be a sort of gallery-like feature in this game as well. And then they show this clip, which has The Sims being played on a computer and also the same things being done on mobile at the same time. We will talk more about that in a second too, because I have thoughts on that. But they kind of showed off a lot of build buy footage, like way more than I would expect. And it looks really good. It's got some great customization features. Like I am really excited about the idea of this. But obviously there's some immediate concerns that I had had and like people online had, so let's talk about it. The first is that it's ugly. People look at it and think that it looks bad. The UI looks bad. I don't think it's ugly. I think it's just new and I'm not used to it, but I also don't love the look of it. But I think it's important to note this is not final software. Like, this is not done. The game is not going to look like that when it actually comes out. If you go and look back at like super early concepts from The Sims 4, it looks completely different. I found this video and I'll link it down below, but I want to show you this just to kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. But like the whole UI, the way the Sims looked, everything was completely different when the game was first being talked about and made. This kind of stuff obviously changes a lot over the course of a game being developed, so those early concepts end up oftentimes looking completely different from how the finished product does. You can see some similarities in the art style and in the way the characters look, but the actual characters themselves are totally different. Build mode's different, the world is different, the UI is different. Everything just looks like kind of off when you're seeing these early concepts. And that's of course because we're used to seeing the finished product, but like, look, this sim, you can tell she's recognizably sort of what they finished on, but it definitely looks really different than it did when the game actually released. This is them kind of showing off their plans for like being able to edit a Sim's face, which at the time was a huge deal. And then you look at this map and like the UI of the Sims, totally different vibe. Like, this is almost unrecognizable from what we actually have in The Sims 4. Like the way this UI looks too, this is ugly, right? Like this looks terrible. It is completely different now. We obviously cannot emphasize enough how different the game really was when it came out. This is also some early concepts, so just like concept art of what Sims might look like in The Sims 4. And obviously, again, a lot has changed since then. It's always so fun for me to go back and look at Sims concept art of like the ideas that could have been. And you might recognize a lot of these things that actually are in the game. Here we have some more early concept maps from The Sims 4. Things do start to get like maybe a little bit more familiar, but my point being, The Sims 5 is probably not going to look anything like what they're showing in this footage right now. The UI is going to be different, the game's going to look different, all the furniture is going to look different. A lot is going to change in the next many years before the game really comes out. And they're probably going to show us more footage as the time goes on, so we'll get more of an idea of how it's shaping up and changing, but don't make like a final judgment call just on that like one little clip, because it isn't going to keep looking like that. The other concern that I've seen a lot is the Paralives comparison. To give you some context, there's this indie game called Paralives that's also being developed right now. It's also going to be a life sim, and it seems pretty promising. There's a lot of really cool features they've been showing off, but it is also still like a work in progress. It's also not anywhere near being released. And it has some pretty cool build features that I think people are comparing and like accusing The Sims 5 of being a copy of Paralives. I'm gonna be honest, I just don't think that. Like, not at all. A lot of new games have these same features. They are not like unique to Paralives. And frankly, this game is years away still. If there weren't like really impressive, cool new build features, I would be shocked. Like, if they really are gonna make a Sims 5 and not put a color wheel, I would be very disappointed. You can even do this stuff in like Planet Zoo. Planet Zoo has this advanced of a build mode. It really isn't like a copy of or anything that's unique to Paralives. There's always a lot of discourse surrounding Paralives in the Sims community. I think a lot of people sort of hope that it's going to come out and like replace The Sims and kill The Sims. There's always a lot of comparison between the two because Paralives has promised a lot of really cool things, and I'm super excited about it also, but I think it's important to keep in mind that Paralives is a brand new game that is not out yet and won't be out anytime soon. It's from a small studio with a small team with a small budget, so I think it's important to like manage our expectations a little bit and not put so much pressure on those devs. And to be honest with you, I don't think The Sims is really worrying about or even thinking about Paralives at all. Okay, so what else do we know about this game? What else can we expect from The Sims 5? So we all saw that mobile phone footage, right? Should we talk about that? We've kind of known about this part for a while because Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, talked about it in like early 2020. This quote was like the first ever little tiny bit of official info we ever got about this game. I made an entire video about this like one sentence a couple of years ago, but he said, as Maxis continues to think about The Sims for a new generation across platforms and a cloud-enabled world, we always stay true to our inspiration, escape, creation, blah, 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 fluff language. This notion of social interaction and competition, like the kind of things that were actually present in The Sims Online many years ago, will start to become a part of the ongoing Sims experience in the years to come. So he sort of confirmed here the next Sims game is going to be online, going to be cross-platform, and like, I guess a multiplayer experience. Now, this sentence made me nervous because I don't really like the idea of an entirely online Sims game. Honestly, the thought of that is like horrifying to me, but I do kind of like the idea of like a smaller multiplayer, like a closed multiplayer, maybe just me and my sister, or like maybe me and Steph and Molly and Jesse and Sasha, like all have a world that we share. Luckily, in the live stream a couple days ago, they sort of elaborated more on this. We want to make it easier to work together and share. You can choose to play it and create by yourself or with your close friends. So they sort of clarified clarified close friends, and that to me means it's not like one big, massive, all online game. So I'm kind of thinking of it as like a Minecraft realm with just me and my siblings, as opposed to like going on to Hypixel and having a server that anybody can access. It's small groups, sort of like the Sims multiplayer mod for The Sims 4, and that is actually really exciting to me. I really like the idea of having the ability to play The Sims multiplayer with people that I like. I do not want to play with strangers, but I do like the idea of playing with my friends. And they also clarified that it like is a single player game, but you can play multiplayer if you want to. And that is the ideal situation for me. But then really interestingly, they said, we want you to be able to play wherever you want. And they said, this is demonstrating early technology tests on how you can play this game across supported devices of your choosing. Same experience, different screens. So again, early technology tests. They're being really vague here on purpose by not clarifying what screens. They're not gonna like outright say mobile or whatever because they don't want to make any promises this early on, because obviously it's just a test. But it sounds like the idea is they want this Sims 5 game to work across all devices. A lot of games are sort of going this route. Like think Fortnite, how it's available on literally every platform. You can play it on mobile, you can play it on console, you can play it on PC. That opens up a huge new player base. Like literally anybody can play Fortnite, and it's free. So like anyone can play Fortnite. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the sort of route The Sims is going for, and I also don't think I would be mad about that. I think people hear mobile game and think like, oh yikes, it's gonna be bad, but I don't look at Fortnite and think it's a bad game just because it's also on mobile. This might be wishful thinking, but I would like to believe that it's possible this game could be on mobile and on PC and still be good. They're not gonna like build it for mobile. It won't be a mobile game, and it probably won't run that well on mobile, but the idea of it is sort of interesting to me. But at its core, The Sims is always going to be a PC game. It always has been. Even now, like The Sims 4 is a PC game that was ported to console and like kind of doesn't work that well on console, but it's on console. That's kind of what I expect to happen with The Sims 5. Like it's gonna be on PC and they'll port it elsewhere, and it might not work that good elsewhere, but it's on those devices. That's kind of what I expect for The Sims 5. Like it'll be on PC, it'll run well on PC, and they'll port it elsewhere, but it might not work as good there. I guess that's not a good thing, is it? I am not selling my point very well here, but basically I am not worried about that phone from the picture. I don't think it's gonna be like a bad game or a mobile game or anything like that. What I am actually worried about though is how the DLC is going to work in this game. I have some serious fears about this DLC model for The Sims 5. So I kind of compared this to Fortnite already with the cross-platform thing and how it's available for everyone everywhere. Well, The Sims 4 base game just went free, so I don't think it's that unreasonable to assume The Sims 5 base game might also be free. A lot of games are coming out free to play these days, but obviously that means there's going to be a different model for making money. Luckily, The Sims already has a model for that. They have really expensive DLC. They very frequently release expansion packs and game packs and stuff that cost like 40 bucks each, and that adds extra additional playable content into the game. So they could probably have the base game always be free in The Sims 5 and then just keep up with that model. But my fear is with how this online thing comes into play. So for example, what happens if I want to play multiplayer with my little sister and I have the seasons pack but she doesn't? It's one thing if like I have the city pack and she doesn't. Okay, we just won't play in the city because she can't access it. But when there's gameplay features like seasons that affect everything everywhere, how does that work? Do they just disable it in my game because she doesn't have it? Is that fair? There's a lot of questions there. So my fear is that instead of a purchasing DLC model, they'll switch to a subscription-based service. Sort of like how everything is a subscription these days. Even a lot of games have a subscription like this. Or I guess like a battle pass or something similar where you pay like frequently to access extra features. And it's sort of temporary, like it can expire when it's over. I really worry The Sims is gonna go that route. Like my nightmare situation is that instead of releasing paid packs, they do a subscription model. And so you pay like whatever amount of money a month and you can access all of the DLC. So instead of like just buying seasons or just buying Dine Out, you would pay a subscription and you would get access to everything. You'd have like seasons and Dine Out, but also University and like all the additional content. And then in an even more nightmare situation, what if to access multiplayer at all, you have to pay the subscription for like the online services? Because like Nintendo does that. If you want to play any Nintendo game online, you have to pay for Nintendo Online monthly. So like if I want to go visit your Animal Crossing island, we both have to pay for Nintendo Online. So my great fear is The Sims is going to try and switch to a model like that where you pay monthly monthly for some sort of extra access to features. So just to clarify, they did not say anything about this. There is no confirmation or even like official word about anything like this. This is purely speculation and like worry on my part. I'm just like talking you through my fears of what I think might happen. And unfortunately, I don't think it's that unlikely, but I would very much love for this to not be the case. I would really not like to see this happen in The Sims 5. I just thought I'd give you a couple little extra things to worry about. So I'm sorry for bringing it up. But that, my friends, is everything we know so far about The Sims 5 and also all of my thoughts on this future generation of The Sims. I'm really excited about the idea of another Sims game. I know a lot of you aren't super into it, mostly because you've sunk like a lot of money into The Sims 4, and so I don't blame you. But this is like years and years away, and I'm just excited about more Sims stuff, to be honest, because you know I love this stupid little game. But with that being said, I will stop rambling about this non-existent Sims game. If you liked this video and if you liked hearing about The Sims, I make a lot of videos surrounding it, but I also make a lot of videos just playing The Sims, so if you're into that too, you can check out those as well. And I'm gonna link a lot of the things that I showed off in this video down below for you if you want to go read into it some more. But thank you so much for watching. Have the best rest of your day, and I'm gonna catch you all tomorrow, okay? Bye, everybody. Oh my god, this recording is 59 minutes long. I have been talking to myself about The Sims for so long. How am I gonna cut this down into anything that makes sense?